Well, welcome everyone to the 2021 Henry's Fork Foundation San Francisco live stream auction virtual event. We're very pleased to have you here with us this evening. Although I will say, I do hope this is our last virtual only event for a while. Here at the Henry's Fork Foundation, we're very hopeful that by February, March, we can have live events in Salt Lake City, and then in April in Boise. And we can see a lot of our members again in person at our honestly well-run and fun events. So we're looking forward to that. But pleased that you have taken some time this evening to join us and help us raise some additional funds for the mission of the Henry's Fork. I do want to right off the bat thank some of our committee members, Bruce Raskin, Nina Motlow Gates, Willie George, Jesse Lowe, and Philip Sawyer. Many of the items that you see here tonight in our auction were gathered by those folks. They've helped set the tone for the event, and we're just very grateful for their support of the Henry's Fork Foundation and what they do day in and day out to make us successful. So thank you to them. I also want to thank up front because we'll get rolling with the event and get into our after party and may not get their names mentioned later on. So up front, get it taken care of. But our events coordinator, Amy Taylor, our member services manager, Julie Maurer, and running IT for us tonight is Sean Holwagner. So those folks behind the scenes helping us with tonight's event, we're very appreciative of all their efforts. And then before I turn it over to Brady here, I do have to give everyone full disclosure. I am not only the executive director of the Henry's Fork Foundation, but I am the 8th grade girls North Fremont basketball coach. And earlier this evening, not too long ago, after a rough shooting night, we hit 2 threes in the last minute, the last one with 3 seconds left, and it was an NBA 3 to tie the game. And then we went on to win the game. So I'm kind of riding a high right now, and I'm feeling like tonight's just going to continue my ride. So looking forward to it. But if I get a little amped, it's because I'm still dealing with a little bit of adrenaline. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brady.
Good evening, folks. Like Brandon said, we'd much rather be there in person with you, but this is the best thing we can do. And thank you already for helping to kick this event off with such good support ahead of time. I'm going to give you a few tips here on kind of how to get through the platform that we're using called HandBid. Sometimes it's easiest to watch the live stream on the computer, on your monitor, and then bid on your phone. It's hard to switch between the two, so that's kind of a pro tip right there. Bid on your phone on the app, and then you can watch the live stream on your computer. When you're on the app, if you want to switch between categories, you just swipe right and left, and that'll take you through the different category sections. That's only if you're on the app. When you're on the desktop, you just click on the different categories. If you don't want to worry about bidding, and you see something you want to make sure that you get it, you can buy it now. There's a price to do that. Skip the line and you're just done, and you're guaranteed to get it. As you bid on things tonight, you'll notice that you'll get a little pop-up that says that you're winning an item, or if someone is outbid you, it'll say you're losing. It doesn't mean that you've won it yet. It just means that you're the winning bidder so far. So just a little note there, just to help with any confusion. Also, you can put in a maximum number that you want to bid, and the platform will bid for you up to that amount. So if you don't want to keep tracking it or following, you just put in the maximum you want to do, and it'll bid for you. When this is over at 8:30 Pacific time, you'll get a little pop-up that says you can pay your invoice. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. That's just an automated thing that happens. And we do have a helpline, the tech helpline, and Devin Entz is our tech helpline guy tonight. I want you to call him, and I would love it if someone would call him and harass him just a little so he's not bored. So please give a phone call to Devin so he's not bored. And if you have any questions at all, he'll help walk you through it. So please, that's why he's here tonight. And I think that's pretty good, Brandon, but I got to tell you something about the flea market today.
Well, tell me, Brady.
You know, the flea market in Ashland's got some pretty good deals.
They do.
So I was down there today, and they have this they had this radio for $1. And I was like, that's pretty good. How come it's only $1? And I said, well, there's a knob here and it's just stuck on high volume. And I said, for $1, I got to take it. I can't turn that down.
Oh boy. Took me just a second.
Yeah, can't turn it down because it's stuck on high volume. Yeah.
Took me just a
Very
second.
good. Very good. So, Brandon, are you going to give us some highlights?
I am going to give some highlights from this past year, talk a little bit about the work of the Henry's Fork Foundation. Once again, that was Brady Taylor, our Conservation Fund Director, helping out, getting us some directions. I'm Brandon Hoffner, the Executive Director of the Henry's Fork Foundation. And so 2021 has been an interesting year. And I'll start out with some of the highlights. This slide here that you can see on your screen, and the text there just kind of gives you an idea of how we're doing our work now. And, the Henry's Fork Foundation uses a science-based collaborative approach to fisheries conservation across the Upper Snake Basin. And really that's, it's how we've evolved since our inception in 1984, due to the complexity of the type of work that we need to do to achieve our mission of conserving, enhancing, the wildlife and aesthetic qualities and fisheries of the Henry's Fork, kind of starting at our origins. And so I'm not going to give you every last thing that's transpired since 1984, but there's been the Swan Falls sediment having to do with hydroelectric power in southern Idaho. There's been an Eastern Snake Plain Aquifer Comprehensive Management Plan. Some of our, unfortunately, some of our anadromous salmonid species, steelhead and salmon, they've become listed. And so that has changed water management on the Henry's Fork and within the Upper Snake Basin. And then we've seen just warming temperatures. We've talked about before in presentations, a 4-degree increase in spring temperatures that it's just kind of started in the 70s and continually progressed on. So to meet those challenges, we've had to go from only looking at the Henry's Fork to looking at the entire basin. And that's really how the water is managed here. When you look at these settlements and agreements, it's how everything works in conjunction. And so to give ourselves, additional seats at the table, give ourselves a larger voice to advocate for the Henry's Fork. We do now have, the South Fork Initiative, which you see as one of our programs on your screen there. So just wanted to kind of touch on that and the evolution of our programs as we've had to adapt and grow. And I think it's really important to know that your funds here tonight have helped us. We've never been able to invest as many hours, staff hours, or as much funding into the Henry's Fork as we are right now in 2021. You've helped us grow. These programs have helped us grow. That way of doing business has helped us grow. And so there's more being invested in the Henry's Fork than at any point in our history. And I think that's just a real accomplishment for anyone that's been a supporter of the Henry's Fork Foundation. But just, to highlight a few things here, science and technology, that's one of our main programs. We are going to hear from Dr. Rob Van Kirk here very shortly, and he's going to talk about how a, precarious situation maybe turned out a little bit better than we probably even hoped at the beginning of the summer, in the late spring, early summer. And so I'll let him hit all the highlights of that. But just, kudos to Rob and his crew for the work they've done and the information they provide so that his report isn't as bleak as it could have been, or as we may have expected back in May and June. And then we have our Farms and Fish program. And this is a program where we're able to really kind of marry some of the science and technology work, which is precision management across the water delivery system. And we're able to take that through Farms and Fish and work it in with individual farmers on a voluntary basis. And so we're able to conserve even more water for Island Park Reservoir carryover, and also just educate our local agricultural community in a little bit different way than we have historically about some of the options that may be out there for them to consider when it comes to water management. And we've increased funding in this for about the past 4 years now, and we have a full-time manager for that program. And here in 2021, we had more acres enrolled. We had more farmers involved, and in the end, more acre feet conserved in Island Park Reservoir than we've ever had. The South Fork Initiative, it really is kind of an encapsulation of everything we do at the Henry's Fork Foundation, whether it's invertebrate monitoring, water quality monitoring, education and outreach. All of those are wrapped up in it. I think the one thing that's a little unique about the South Fork Initiative is that we're able to do quite a bit of restoration work. And so the restoration work around Rainy Creek has been a real flagship project within the South Fork Initiative, and it just continues to build here in 2021. It's every year we're adding to that and have a great set of staff down there working on that. And then a big piece of what we do is outreach and education, talking to people about our programs, what's available as far as our local communities that they can get involved with, maybe through Farms and Fish or otherwise, reaching our local schools. And a highlight of this year was having, once again, our interns here at the Henry's Fork Foundation, and they're working on individual projects that really contribute to the mission of the Henry's Fork Foundation. And it does take some time and effort, but we've got a great crew here helping to steward that program and make sure both the interns and the foundation end up with positive outcomes from that work. So that's kind of a highlight of 2021. As I said, Rob will give us a little more in-depth look at the water situation, but I'm going to turn it back over to Brady now, and he can hit one of our auction highlights.
Yeah, we have a pretty spectacular art piece that doesn't have any bids on it right now, and I'd like to just do a little highlight on it. It's the original acrylic on canvas that's titled "The Sky Ignites" by Sarah Landstrom. This richly colored piece measures 60 by 48. It's 5 foot by 4 foot. For those that need a little explanation there, and it was commissioned especially for the Henry's Fork Foundation. So as you can see, as this is highlighted on the hand bid platform, or go find it. The Sky Ignites. It's spectacular. This is honestly, we see a lot of art. This one really is special, and it's one that if for some reason it doesn't sell tonight, we're going to carry this over next year, and it's one we would take to Henry's Fork Days and possibly have it be our highlighted art piece that we would put on our posters for promotion for Henry's Fork Days. It's that good. So Sarah's from San Francisco, and she's always been around water and fishing, and you can see her vibrant colors and expressive mark making make her work bright and distinctive. And so she incorporates her landscape figure painting background to create movement within each piece. She does stuff for loop tackle, Yeti, casting for recovery, cow trout. So this is a $4,000 piece easily. The starting bid is $2,250. It's one that I really like this one. So take a little look at it, and I really think you'll be impressed with this one. This one could go in a lot of different types of houses, and it's pretty versatile. So that's the highlight there. Brandon, you coming back on?
I am. I'm back.
I have a question for you.
Oh, fire away.
So, if you're trying to find a fly that a country girl would like, what kind of pattern do you think a country girl would like?
I don't know, Brady.
A tractor pattern?
Tractor.
That's
very obvious once you told me.
Yeah, it makes sense once you hear it, right? Yeah. So I guess take it away, Brandon. Next up.
So up next, we have a interview with Craig Matthews. It's conducted by Nelson Ishiyama, and we appreciate both Craig and Nelson taking their time to discuss conservation, the Henry's Fork, a whole host of different topics here. And you'll notice as we get into the video that this is shot at Nelson's Henry's Fork Lodge, and just a beautiful setting there. So I'd encourage you, if you've never been there, to have dinner or something, get up there and check it out, make some reservations. It's a great way to spend an evening. But with that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Nelson and Craig.
Hi, I'm Nelson Ishiyama, and I'm going to interview our guest tonight, Craig Matthews. And actually, the foundation wanted a local lodge owner to interview Craig, and Jimmy Kimmel wasn't available, so I'm the next guy. So Craig Matthews is best known for his Blue Ribbon Flies fly shop and for his fly tying. But I think I'm going to ask Craig about his conservation work, which is at least as important as his fly fishing work. And I'm also going to tell you a little bit about his work as an author. And what you should know, I think, about Craig is his work for conservation. He and his wife, Jackie, have won so many awards for conservation. I think I am personally prouder of Craig for that than even for his fly tying and fly fishing prowess. So let's get started with Craig. Craig, can you tell me how you came to West Yellowstone?
That's a great story. We're sitting tying flies. I used to tie flies in my off time for Bud Lilly. I lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan. My wife was a police dispatcher. I was a policeman. And my wife one night said, you know what, we're going to move to Yellowstone. And I said, what? They would never talked about it. So I said, what are we going to do? She said, we're going to work for the police department. So I said, okay, call on the phone. So she calls on the phone, and I thought she was kidding me. She gets hired on the phone. This is 10 o'clock at night. I'm tying flies in Michigan. They hire her on the phone. Next thing I know, she gives me the phone, and she said, it's the police chief. They need a cop. And I go, whoa. And I'm talking to this guy, and he said, we need a policeman, but I can't hire you on the phone. You have to fly out for an interview. So 2 days later, we're flying to Yellowstone to interview. But he was an interesting guy. He was in the process of leaving. He said, you're the next police chief. I said, hell, I haven't even been hired as a policeman yet. Anyway, long story short, he left a couple days later. I got hired as a policeman. A week later, I found myself as the police chief of the West Yellowstone Police Department.
So after you left the police department, you started Blue Ribbon Flies.
Yeah, I didn't. I was still a cop for a couple of years. My sister was born with spina bifida, and I taught her how to tie flies, and she taught some disabled kids how to tie flies. And the idea always hit me, you know what, we're going to hire disabled people to tie flies. The next thing you know, we're in Helena, Montana, hiring disabled fly tiers. We brought them back, trained them how to tie flies, and the rest is history. We opened up our fly shop, which was totally wholesale in 1979 through 1982. It was wholesale flies.
So when did you open your retail store?
In 1982, I quit the police department, and I think I still probably hold the record for longest lasting police chief they ever had. So we opened up retail in 1982. And we had semi-truck drivers pulling in, drinking coffee and buying flies. And that word caught on that we were open 24 hours a day.
Wow. So you've also become known for originating quite a number of popular fly patterns. Can you tell us about kind of the most popular ones and the most effective ones?
Probably the most popular one, and I want to say this too, because I want to recognize all the fly tiers and their influence on the flies that we get credit for, and sometimes we don't deserve credit for it because they had so much input. Sparkle Dun is probably the most famous, and John Jurasek and I came up with that, and I'll tell you how we came up with that. We're at the crossover fence on the Henry's Fork, and we're sitting there watching these big rainbows feeding, and they're sipping PMD emergers. And we had come up with, Doug Swisher and Carl Richards actually came up with these emergers using duck quill sections for trailing shucks. And we thought, wait a minute, we could see that the trailing shucks were glistening and sparkling, unlike duck quills, which weren't,
right,
glistening. So we went back to the shop and used a material initially called sparkle yarn. After that, we transitioned to Zelon because we could dye Zelon, and it floated very well. And we tied flies with trailing nymphal shucks. It was very interesting that we thought we were really onto something hot, you know. But if you read Colonel Harding's book, Colonel E.W. Harding, 1937, wrote a book, The Trout Fisher, the Fly Fish and the Trout's Point of View. He talked about trailing shucks in 1931. And I always like to say, you know, originality in fly tying is merely undetected plagiarism. It's been done before.
So what other flies? There must be a few other flies.
Ex caddis, which is one of my favorites, and actually it was my wife Jackie. Jackie said, "Why don't you do what you did with your sparkling with mayflies? Put a trailing shuck on a caddis, eliminate the hackle, put a trailing shuck on Work Like a Dream."
Great. So you still tie flies even after you retired from Blue Ribbon Flies?
I tie between 750 and 1,000 dozen a year. I donate a lot of flies to conservation organizations. I love to tie flies. I love to just sit and tie flies.
So let's talk a bit about your conservation work for 1% for the Planet. Because of all the organizations you've worked with, I think you've been most involved with.
Isn't that a great beetle?
You've been most involved with 1% for the Planet, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So how did it get started, and who started it?
Well, you know, our 1% work began with the Yellowstone Park Foundation. If every business in the greater Yellowstone area would do 1% of the gross sale, we could fund Grand Teton in Yellowstone Park, no sweat. We would not need any government involvement. So we started doing that. Actually, we were doing 2%. And Yvonne Chenard and I, the owner of Patagonia, and I were sitting here fishing the Henry's Fork one day, and we're talking about some of the conservation work and philanthropy that we had done. And we found out that we were both doing that. And we decided to found an organization that we called 1% for the Planet. And that was 20 years ago. We're doing our 20th anniversary this coming year, and we've done over $300 million for conservation so far. I'm really proud of that. Some of the conservation work, you know, the Henry's Fork Foundation is a recognized recipient of 1% funds, and Madison River Foundation and other, Yellowstone Park Foundation.
So I understand you and Yvonne were out on the Blackfoot, or the Bighorn Indian Reservation.
Yeah, the Crow Indian
To
Reservation.
teach them how
We
to
taught several
fish.
times. We've been to the Crow teaching Indian kids how to fly fish. And it's so cool because every one of them picks it right up. We're on the Bighorn, pretty soon they're hooking those big fish. And they have such a feel for nature, and they never have to run with the rod. They're sitting there fishing 6X, catching 17, 18-inch brown trout. And, you know, you see a guy out there, because he's really putting it to him. And, you know, he's out there 75 yards into his backing with an 18-inch brown trout, and these Indian kids are just towing these fish right in.
So what are your impressions of the Henry's Fork Foundation? And
I think first what we have to look at, what I like to look at, is the mission of an organization. And I think most people do. And of course, you know, everybody knows its mission is to promote stream flows, which is first and foremost, healthy fish populations, a positive fishing experience, while ensuring that these important factors endure for future generations, for our kids and grandkids. So really, let's look at what the foundation strategies to make the mission happen. And what impresses me again about the foundation is they use science-based collaboration to inform the management of the Henry's and South Fork foundations and initiatives in the wild trout fisheries. Like the recent and very successful Rainy Creek project, the water quality monitoring. A lot of people don't look at this, but youth education, community outreach, all these are really important to the foundation. All the internships, the grad studies and the research, and of course, the river access. And the Henry's Fork Foundation has got, unmatched in terms of its professional staff, an active board of directors, which I think is really cool because so many boards don't do anything. They just go to meetings and drink coffee and talk about it. And the science staff, led by Dr. Van Kirk, Rob, who's been around for, how long has Rob been around for? Holy moly.
several decades.
he's an old man. I remember when he was a kid. It has the capacity to complete high-quality, science-based work and connect the stakeholders in the local community. And I think that's really key, is connecting everybody that's involved. So its staff and members have conducted, so much outreach, and it's prevented, a potentially harmful hydro project. At Mesa Falls, it's installed and maintained miles of riparian fences over the years, all basically donated labor and volunteer labor. And it allows the riverbanks to recover from harmful erosion. And it's hosted over 50 interns. When I last looked, it was like 30, but now I guess it's over 50 interns. And it served, sometimes this is corny, but it served as the voice of the river, the voice of the Henry's Fork and South Fork. And finally, it's invested decades building relationships with water users. And we all know how tough that can be when you're dealing with farmers and ranchers, but through the Henry's Fork Watershed Council and the Drought Management Planning Committee and programs like Farms to Fish, it's put in a favorable position to monitor and promote favorable conditions for the fishery. And as the Yellowstone area continues to face, and this is, I think, the most important, the ravages of climate change. I mean, it's hitting us right frickin' smack in the face, such as water shortages and availability and timing of precipitation, increased spring and summer air temperatures, and water use demands. The foundation continues to pursue projects that have shown benefits to trout population and water quality. I guess really there can be no words that explain the hidden spirit of wild trout streams like the Henry's Fork and South Fork that can reveal their mystery, charm, and all of this thanks to the hard work of the foundation. I'm sorry for being long-winded, but that's how I feel.
Well, thanks, Craig, because coming from you, that's high praise, because you are one of the giants of conservation around here,
Well, thank you.
and also in the world of fly fishing in general. So thanks a million for doing this.
Well,
interview.
thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the work the foundation does.
Thank you.
So we really want to thank Craig and Nelson again for their time to put together that interview. There is a full version that will be on our YouTube channel later tonight, so you can check that out if you'd like to see the full version of that interview. And one thing that Craig is very much involved with, and as a founder, you mentioned, 1% for the planet. And so I do want to highlight that the Henry's Fork Foundation recently received a 1% for the planet gift through Loon Outdoors, an Idaho company. And we're just really grateful to Loon Outdoors for designating us for those funds. So once again, thanks to those guys for making that interview happen. You can check it out on our YouTube channel. And with that, I think it's time for Brady to talk about some more of our auction items.
Yeah, there's another piece here that I'd kind of like to highlight, another art piece. And this one is an original painting. And this one is by C.D. Clark, titled $3 Bridge. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that. It's 11 by 17, and it's framed at 17 by 20. So this one would fit on most walls. You wouldn't have to have a special big wall for this one. C.D. Clark's pretty well known. He travels the world hunting, fishing, and painting. What's unique about him is that he carries his art supplies on his back, so he can just paint on location. He's from New York and actually received a degree in painting and illustration from Syracuse in 1981. His pieces are have been collected by sports personalities all over the world. So this is not just a beautiful piece; it's also a collectible. This one's a $3,500 value because it's an original, and the opening bid's $1,750, so 50% of value. So just wanted to highlight this one. This is another one that's just beautiful, and not only would you get a nice piece of art, but supporting a good cause. So that's the one to take a look at. It's the original painting by C.D. Clark, $3 Bridge. And with that, we're going to turn it over to Rob and You ready to go, Rob?
I'm ready to go, as long as you don't uncork another one of those jokes.
Oh, now that you brought it up, I have to.
Oh,
You ready?
yeah.
So, why do nurses like red crayons?
Oh my goodness, I'm not going to touch that.
Well, because sometimes they have to draw blood.
Ah, got it.
Right?
All right.
All right, I'm out.
All right. Thanks, Brady. So Nelson Ishiyama did point out that he is a local lodge owner who is not Jimmy Kimmel. But what he failed to point out is that Craig Matthews appeared on a segment of David Letterman in 1994. So we can add that to Craig's long list of achievements in his life. So I'm going to talk about water year 2021. We'll go to the next slide here, and I'm going to start with the bad news and end up with good news, which is the way to do this. Let's start with the bad news on this next slide here. It was pretty easy to summarize the climate in water year 2021. We had a horrible snowpack, only 78% of average, and it was really dry. Total precipitation for the water year was only 81% of average. I've got some figures from 2016 by way of comparison there, because you recall 2016 was the last really bad drought year that we had, and it was quite devastating for the Henry's Fork fishery. And so it turned out 2021 was actually worse in most respects. Our snowpack peaked about 3 weeks early. It was, as I say, very low. The only thing that kind of saved us in the spring was that it was fairly cool March, April, and May, which kind of kept the snow on the ground at least till June. And then it got really hot, and the mean temperature in June and July set an all-time new record by over a degree, which is a huge increase for a new temperature record. I think it was 1.2 degrees over the previous record. So low snowpack, low precipitation, really hot summer. So on the next slide, you can actually see how the snowpack went. The blue is what happened in water year 2021. Red is average, and that yellow or orangish curve is 2016. And you can see, we started out behind 2016 by a long shot back in March and April. As we went through May, 2021 kind of looked like 2016, and then we even peeled off from the 2016 curve and ended up essentially our snowpack was gone within the second week of June compared to the middle of July on average. So we started out really bad there. So the next slide shows you how the actual stream flow turned out. Water supply in the watershed, it was 76% of average. We did a hair better than 2016 there, which came in at 74% of average stream flow. But you can see that 2021, which is that last bar on the graph here, was right down there with the worst years we've had in the last 45 years, including 2015 and 2016, 2001 and 2 and 3, 88 and 1992. So this was a really, really dry year. Next slide shows you that, in fact, it was even worse than that. The only reason we had a little edge on 2016 is because we had decent flow last winter. You can see that the 2021 blue curve was quite a bit above the orange one through most of the winter. That's because 2021 followed a near average year, whereas 2016 followed a year that was pretty darn dry. But once we got into the summer, there was actually more stream flow in 2016 than we had in 2021. So during the irrigation season, in fact, the stream flow water supply we had to work with this year was 69% of average, which is extremely low. So next slide here shows you some figures on how the irrigation system was managed. This has the bad news, good news kind of mixed in. So Fremont-Madison Irrigation District on paper only got 74% of its storage allocation, which was really bad for the irrigators. And not only that, but the water rights priorities in the Henry's Fork dropped very early, about a month earlier than usual. What that means is that a water rights holder, for example, with this 1895 water right, which is the date of a lot of the rights on Fall River in the Henry's Fork and the St. Anthony area, ran out of water. On paper, their water right was gone on June 19th, which is like before really the heart of irrigation season even starts. And those two factors were really bad for the irrigators, but they kind of helped us because diversion was only 92% of average versus 98% in 2016. So So less water was diverted, and that did play to the advantage of water conservation for fisheries. So this year, the system was managed with 3 objectives. One is to meet a minimum flow of 350 cubic feet per second in the Henry's Fork downstream of all diversions. And if you're familiar, that's downstream of the railroad trestle area there, which is downstream of St. Anthony Ways. And then try to only leave as much water in the South Fork Teton River there when it goes through Rexburg to meet demand on the lowest canal there, which has a high variability day to day. So it's really hard to meet that target. And then try to minimize variability in flow in the lower parts of the watershed. That's good for both fish and irrigators. So I got some figures down here in the table. In 2021, that lower Henry's Fork flow target was, remember, 350, and it was pretty accurate, pretty precisely hit at 427 CFS. And the variability around that typical variability was 35%. You look at 2016, 473 CFS. So that's an extra 50 CFS going out the bottom of the watershed that didn't need to. And not only that, the variability was a lot higher, 45% variability. And you'll notice that despite the lower average, on only 3 days did the lower Henry's Fork fall below 200 CFS down there below the trestle, whereas it fell below that on 11 days in 2016. Similar figures for the South Fork Teton, 120 CFS average flow there at Rexburg. If you're familiar with that, it's right by that Albertsons store there is where the gauge is. And versus 213 CFS in 2016. Again, that was 100 extra CFS going out the bottom of the watershed in 2016 that didn't need to. And you compound that over a 120 day irrigation season. That's a lot of water that went out of the watershed in 2016 that didn't need to. So the precision of the management in the system was far better this year, in fact, than it's ever been. And I'll show you some more statistics about that in a minute. As far as Island Park Reservoir draft to meet demand under those precision management criteria, you'll see that, in June, early July, the trajectory this year looked just like it did in 2016. It looked like we were headed in a race for the bottom, which is a term I used often there early in the summer. But you'll see that in July, late July, things started to change. And after the 1st of August, the reservoir was essentially not drafted anymore. And you'll see a huge amount of water that stayed in Island Park. And by the end of the summer, we actually ended up pretty much near average, despite a water year that was far, far below average. So next slide shows you a little more about the factors that affect carryover in Island Park Reservoir and how this year's shaped up with 2016. So obviously, natural flow availability is important. That's the number one factor. You got more water, you need to release less out of Island Park. Total diversion obviously is important. If more water gets diverted, more has to be delivered from Island Park. And finally, it's the stream flow in the Henry's Fork downstream of diversions. In other words, how precisely is that stream flow target met? Even after accounting statistically for all this stuff, 2016, the Island Park Reservoir carryover fell almost 16,000 acre feet below what you'd expect based on these factors. In 2021, the reservoir carryover beat expectations by 9,000 acre feet. That's a net improvement of almost 25,000 acre feet compared with 2016. So these were 2 years with very similar water supply, and the net improvement was 25,000 acre feet, even after accounting for all these statistical factors. That would give us an extra 104 CFS winter flow downstream of Island Park, all other factors being equal. So the last slide here, I think is the last slide. Yeah. So what can we expect over the short term and the long term? So short term, right now, the outflow from Island Park Reservoir is around 110 CFS. That's really low, but we don't have any scientific evidence that has a negative effect on the fishery. But we have strong evidence that the flow from December through March does. And so the plan right now is to increase the outflow to something at least 200 CFS on December 1st. it was 170 in 2016. The way things are going right now, we may end up closer to 230, 250 or something like that. However, right now we're limited by low inflow to the reservoir, which is actually today, this last few weeks, it's been the third lowest since the 1930s, projected to be the fourth lowest by the time we get through the end of the winter. However, in October, we've already had a lot of precipitation. We've already received well above the monthly average for October. So we're starting water year 2022 off on a good note, and the long-term forecast call for a modest improvement in drought conditions over the next few months. So with a little bit of luck, plus all the water management work and everything that we did over the last few years, we may actually come through this drought looking like it was just another average year for us. So that's my report, and look forward to seeing what happens in the precipitation snowpack here over the next few months.
Hey, thank you, Rob. I think we're all so fortunate and blessed to have you to lead these efforts, and being the smartest guy in the room, it sure helps us out. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, I appreciate it, but I always tell everybody, you bring the money in and I'll spend it.
Hey, it's a good deal. But I think I might have mentioned this to you before about you're a mathematician, statistician, right? That's your training. And I think I mentioned this study that was done about that 5/4 of all people are really bad at fractions.
Yeah, right. You did tell me that. Yeah,
5/4 of all people are really bad at fractions. So just something to think about when you're just pondering math and statistics, All
right.
Okay.
Will do.
Okay. So let's move on here. We're going to talk about Raise Your Hand for the River. So here's your opportunity to make a donation tonight to support the cause and all the great work that Rob and his team are doing. It's easy to see the results from your investment in our work. So as I go through these different giving levels, I'm going to highlight some people that have already given, and I've got my little handy tracker here that I can see real time who's making donations. So the first level to donate is at the $5,000 level. This is our life membership package, and with all of these levels, you're going to receive a thank you gift, just our way of showing appreciation to you, working with the different vendors and fly fishing companies. It's kind of our way to support them too. So with this one, you're going to receive the G. Loomis NRX Plus fly rod. This one's been rated one of the top fly fishing rods for many years. It's very accurate, short and long casting. You get your choice between a 4-weight and 8-weight. Beautiful piece of equipment. This is paired with the Waterworks Lamson Lightspeed F reel. This is a new reel they just came out with, a beautiful color called Whiskey. And you have your choice to go pair with this depending on which rod you choose, a 3, 5, or 7+. And of course, you get the life member swag, hat pin, no more dues, and then in the Green Drake Society for a year. And that's for the people that donate $2,500 or more each year. So it's a pretty nice package. Get a pretty good gifts, but more importantly, you show your dedication to the organization by becoming a life member. And I do want to recognize a few folks that have already given here, and I'm going to be following to see if anybody else steps up tonight. We have Dave Long, Larry and Dave and Sally Long, Larry and Pamela Garlick, Linda and Andy Atch, Jack and Janet Roberts. So amazing, right? We have 4 people here that have done that, and that makes a huge difference in the success of today in this event. Moving on, we have the $2,500 level. This is our Green Drake package. Those that give at this level are in the Green Drake Society for 1 year. You have your choice this time of the NRX Plus fly rod, the 4-weight through the 8-weight, or you can choose that beautiful Whiskey reel. These reels are super lightweight, very durable. Just a beautiful piece of equipment. Also get your Green Drake vest and the Green Drake pin, and 1 year in the Green Drake Society. So you have your choice here of these. And so please consider becoming a Green Drake Society member or renewing your membership for the year. And here we've got a whole bunch of people that have already given this level ahead of time. So I want to recognize them. John McCosker, Nina Gates Motlow, Paul and Martha Schmidt, Tom and Joan Brown, Lyman and Carol Casey, Patsy Ishiyama, Jesse Lowe, Bruce Raskin, and Elliot Hewlett. So that's a lot of people that gave it this level. So thank you all. That's remarkable and inspiring. Let's move on to 1,000. So here you got to get this, what we call the Riverside package, and you're going to get 3 items here for your $1,000 donation. This Yeti Loadout Go Box. It's a kind of a utility box, toolbox. I use it as a boat box from out in the drift boat or a raft. It's very versatile. You also receive the Eddie Bauer oversized down throw with the logo and the Dr. Slick clamp set. So you get 3 items here for $1,000 donation. And let's see who's done this already. Oh, Paula Noreen Sliben, Eric Adama, Bobby Armour, JC Polton, Sally Griffith, John and Karen Hodge, Amelie and Dan Kappas, Phil Sawyer, and DJ Feimister. So also big list there of people that have already given at this level. Thank you. We appreciate you. We couldn't do it without you, literally. So now we're going to go down to 500. Here you get the Go box, the Yeti Loadout Go box. I'll point out a couple features here. You got a nice divider in there, this little caddy that comes out for your smaller items. I mean, tippet, these are for tippet and small flies and just little things I need to get too easy. And then at the very top of the lid, you got some storage there with some zippered pouch. That's where I keep my fly line and buff and paperwork. But this is a great box. It's bear proof and pretty indestructible. Not as heavy as a cooler. It's not a cooler, but but people use it for all sorts of stuff. So that's an option tonight at 500. And people that have done that, we have Willie George. Willie George has already done that. Thank you, Willie. Speaking of Willie, you should check out his. He does a casting lesson, so you need to go out there and bid on his casting lesson that he's doing tonight. In the auction. Last I checked, he didn't have a bid yet, but he'll do something even by Zoom. If you can't get to him, he will get to you through technology. So anyway, let's go on to $250. Here you have the Eddie Bauer down throw with HFF logo on it. This is super cozy and warm, light, and has a very high snuggle factor, I've been told. And so you need that. Someone that's already done this was Jane Ann Lamp. She's donated this level already. So thank you, Jane Ann. And for $100, we have the Dr. Slick clamp gift set. And at this level, we have Bonnie Altson's already given at this level. That's very nice. And Richard May, very good. Thank you. Yeah, you can see what you get here. You get some forceps, a little retractor, some nippers, and so just an easy way to make a small gift. But I tell people all the time, it all adds up. And when we have so many people supporting at any level, it really does all add up. So thank you all for your generosity tonight and leading up to tonight. I'm going to give some totals here at the very end, but we're tracking amazingly well, especially for a virtual event. So with that, we're going to go to another auction item highlight. And here what I'm going to do, I'm just going to look over here of the items that don't have any bids yet. And let's see what we got cooking here. Let's see here. No bids. All right. So we've got a couple of trips here. If you want to take a trip to Nashville, kind of a fun 4-day, 4-night deal there. 6-day, 6-night Asheville Trekker trip for 4 people for $3,500. That's a great deal. Of course, our pieces I've talked about, they still don't have a bid. We've got some skincare products, Dolby Gone, and Stress No More. I mean, who couldn't use that? I need that. Geez, I should bid on that. Stress No More skincare. And you got some, beautiful original watercolor. I like that. That's only $150 right now. Then we've got some books, got some jewelry. And that casting lesson with Willie George. Dang it. Who doesn't need a casting lesson? So check out those no bid items. And there you have a good opportunity to get something for 50% of value. and also support a good cause. So with that, Brandon, you're coming in. How are you?
Yeah, so
How are you?
I'm doing well. I've enjoyed
Hey.
the evening.
You know, I was going to tell some more time traveling jokes tonight, but guess what?
What?
You didn't like them.
Honestly, sometimes you make me think with these jokes. I've got to stretch my horizons a bit, my intellect to get to them.
Well,
That's a good one.
It's because they're not very good. That's really why. It's not really stretching your intellect. It's they're not very good. I mean, they're bad dad jokes.
Yeah, but they make for a part of a fun evening.
Okay.
So we do need to do our wrap up for the evening. We're going to close that live auction at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Brady will touch on some auction results here, as he said, in just a bit. And then our Zoom after party. It's become something that we always attach to our virtual events. We will be giving you here in a second a link so you can get on that Zoom after party, and Jamie Lotch, our communication and outreach director, will help run that for us this evening. We'll have multiple staff members there to answer questions, engage in conversation, and provide a little bit of more of that community feeling that we're not able to get in this virtual format unless we do the Zoom after party. So we look forward to seeing you there. As I said, we'll get that link up here in a second. So Brady, how did we do tonight?
It's interesting. We've done, this is our second year in a row of doing virtual events pretty much for all the events. And we snuck one in last year, beginning of the year in Salt Lake. And that's the only one we've done in person the last couple of years. And so San Francisco, this event is a record event for San Francisco. By a large margin. I think we were just looking at the numbers before, and we did have an event a few years back that was over 50,000. This one's over $65,000 net. That's the net that's going to go to these events, these projects specifically. So remarkable. Just speaks to the commitment of the San Francisco community and our members across the country. So thank you. Amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. And as you said, that's kind of the cool thing about the virtual events is not only do we get to have the San Francisco community on this event, but we do get people from across the country participating. So it'll be kind of cool once we see, the ability to have in-person events and we keep a virtual component, maybe a hybrid event, what we're able to do with that. So we're looking forward to that, new horizon out there that we can do a little pioneering there on hybrid events. So
it'll be the Cuddy Rain Brown
Zoom after party. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'll say it'll be the Cuddy Rain Brown of events.
The Cuddy Rain Brown. That's right.
The hybrid.
To quote our friend Hank Patterson. Do we have that Zoom after party link? There it is. So you can go to this link. Leave that up for a second. We look forward to joining you on there. It's always a good time. We usually spend 15 to 30 minutes longer if people are really engaged and want to talk longer than that. But look forward to just having conversations you want to have, answer questions, talk about fishing, talk about water situation, talk about the specifics of our work, or hear your fishing stories. Those are all things that can be covered in that after party. With that, we're going to wrap up this portion of the San Francisco event. And just once again, thank you to all those committee members, the staff that have helped put this on, and every last donor that made this entire evening and that record net event total a possibility. So thank you. It's very humbling for me, and I know for the rest of our staff to have that kind of support.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon.